The ceasefire meeting took place in the open. That was the first mistake. The Threxian War Council preferred enclosed chambers, fortified walls, controlled air, layered security fields. They believed distance equaled safety. The humans had insisted on neutral ground, a former agricultural settlement at the edge of the Orion frontier. Wide fields, long sidelines, minimal cover. The Threxian delegation arrived in a three-tier armored carrier, descending in a plume of ion-burned dust. Their honor guard formed a tight defensive ring the moment the ramp opened. 6 soldiers, heavy carapace armor, plasma lances resting against their shoulders. They scanned rooftops immediately. Grain silos, farmhouses, wind turbines. Empty, or so it appeared. Across the field stood the human delegation. No armored vehicle, no visible heavy weapons. Just a row of folding tables set up beneath a faded solar canopy. Commander Elias Ward stood at the center. Mid-40s, weathered face, sleeves rolled to his forearms. No visible armor plating. Behind him stood maybe 20 civilians. Farmers, mechanics, 2 teenagers in worn denim jackets. An elderly woman with silver hair pulled into a loose braid. The Threxians halted 50 meters away. Their lead emissary, Counselor Virex, stepped forward. His armor shimmered under the sun, layered plating fused into his exoskeletal frame. His species was built for siege warfare, thick-limbed, durable, bred for frontal dominance. He scanned the area again. No visible turrets. No artillery. Just humans. "This is your defensive posture?" Virex asked, voice amplified through a resonant throat chamber. Ward smiled faintly. "It's a meeting." Virex's eyes narrowed slightly. "You requested ceasefire dialogue while maintaining a forward artillery presence in this sector." Ward shrugged lightly. "We're farmers." A faint ripple of amusement passed through the Threxian guards. Virex gestured toward the rooftops. "Which one is your sniper?" The question hung in the air. Ward blinked once. "Sniper?" "Yes," Virex said evenly. "The long-range precision specialist assigned to overwatch this engagement." Ward glanced over his shoulder at the civilians, then back at Virex. He smirked. "Pick any." The Threxian honor guard stiffened. Virex's posture shifted subtly. "You misunderstand." Ward shook his head. "No, I don't." The wind stirred through the fields. A distant irrigation turbine hummed. Virex's optics zoomed automatically, scanning each human face. They didn't look like soldiers. No uniforms. No visible targeting rigs. One of the teenagers adjusted her baseball cap and leaned casually against a tractor. The elderly woman folded her arms. A man in a grease-stained jacket chewed on something absent-mindedly. "You expect us to believe," Virex said slowly, "that your civilians are combat-trained marksmen?" Ward tilted his head slightly. "Define trained." The Threxian guard captain stepped forward. "Precision warfare is specialized. It requires discipline, advanced optics, muscle calibration." Ward nodded. "Sure." He gestured vaguely toward the group behind him. "Most of them grew up hunting." A pause. Virex blinked once. "Hunting. Food," Ward clarified. "Predators too, sometimes." The Threxian guard captain shifted weight. "Your world is categorized as moderate threat biosphere." Ward smiled slightly wider. "You've never been." Silence stretched across the field. Virex processed the exchange. "If this is a psychological tactic," Ward interrupted gently. "It's not." He reached down slowly, deliberately, and picked up a metal water bottle from the table. He placed it on the far fence post, about 200 meters away. "See that?" Virex tracked the object. "An empty container." Ward nodded. "Counselor, pick someone." Virex's crest flared faintly. "You are proposing a demonstration?" Ward shrugged. "You asked." The Threxian guard captain raised his plasma lance slightly. "This is unnecessary." Ward's expression didn't change. "So is bringing 6 armored soldiers to talk to farmers." The field went quiet again. Virex made a small gesture. One of the Threxian soldiers activated a scanning pulse. No weapon signatures registered. No active targeting arrays. Nothing. Just humans. Ward folded his arms loosely. "Well," Virex pointed at random. "The elderly female." A faint smile crossed the old woman's face. She stepped forward without hesitation. Up close, her posture was relaxed. Wrinkled hands. Weathered skin. She reached into the back pocket of her jeans. The Threxian guard captain tensed. But she didn't pull a weapon. She pulled out a small handheld device. Simple. Unadorned. She raised it casually, barely bracing. 200 meters away, the metal bottle rang sharply and flipped off the fence post. A clean impact. The Threxian soldiers flinched. The guard captain scanned instantly. The projectile had been a compressed kinetic dart, small, silent, absurdly precise. Again, Virex said. This time he pointed at one of the teenagers. The girl rolled her shoulders once. Same target? She asked casually. Ward nodded. She didn't even look fully downrange. Just lifted her wrist-mounted launcher and fired. The bottle cap snapped clean off the fallen container. The cap spun into the dirt. Silence. The Threxian scanning pulse intensified. Still no heavy weapon signatures. Virex's gaze moved slowly across the remaining civilians. How many? He asked quietly. Ward answered honestly. Depends how far. The Threxian guard captain stepped closer. You are suggesting that your civilian population is capable of distributed long-range lethality? Ward shrugged again. Most of us grow up around rifles. He gestured toward the fields. You can't protect livestock from predators with harsh language. The Threxians processed that. Virex's voice lowered slightly. And urban populations? Ward's smirk returned. More creative. The air shifted. This wasn't about bravado. It wasn't about showing off. It was about recalibration. The Threxians had assumed sniper meant specialist. Elite. Rare. Instead, they were staring at a species where precision shooting was recreational. Cultural. Normal. Virex studied Ward carefully. You are telling me, he said slowly, that at this moment, from this settlement alone, we are within the effective range of. Ward interrupted gently. Yes. A long pause. The irrigation turbine hummed again. Wind brushed through dry crops. Virex finally asked the question that mattered. How many of your civilians are armed? Ward's smile faded slightly. All of them. The Threxian honor guard stiffened. Weapons did not rise. But posture changed. The power dynamic shifted. This wasn't a military base. It was a farming colony. And the Threxians were suddenly aware that every barn window, every windmill platform, every ridgeline beyond the field could conceal a steady human hand. Ward leaned slightly forward. You asked which one's our sniper. He gestured broadly to the fields. You're standing in it. The Threxian honor guard did not raise their weapons, but their targeting optics activated. Ward saw the faint flicker in their helmets and smiled slightly. Good. Now they were thinking. Counselor Virex scanned the horizon again, slower this time. Not looking for a single elevated rifle position. Looking for patterns. Windows. Windmill platforms. Barn lofts. The distant irrigation towers. The humans behind Ward stood casually. No military formation. No rigid spacing. But their posture had changed subtly. Relaxed. Balanced. As if they had all shifted weight onto stable ground without appearing to move. Virex's voice lowered. You claim distributed lethality without centralized command. Ward nodded once. We farm in teams, he said. We hunt alone. The Threxian guard captain stepped forward again. This is not formal warfare. Ward tilted his head. It's not supposed to be. A long silence settled between them. Virex processed the strategic implication. The Threxian doctrine relied on overwhelming visible force. Siege lines. Shield formations. Artillery arcs. You neutralized the command node. You dismantled supply chains. You crushed the military infrastructure. Civilians fled. Territory folded. That doctrine did not function against a population where the civilian was the infrastructure. Virex spoke slowly. You are saying that even if we dismantled your fleet presence, even if we eliminated your forward bases, we would still face long-range resistance. Ward's eyes didn't leave his. Yes. The irrigation turbine hummed again. Virex gestured toward the fallen bottle 200 meters away. A trick at short range does not define war. Ward nodded thoughtfully. You're right. He turned slightly. Tom, one of the civilians stepped forward. Mid-30s. Worn baseball cap. Grease under his fingernails. He didn't look like a soldier. He looked like someone who fixed tractors. Ward pointed beyond the fields. Nearly a kilometer away stood a rusted maintenance drone mounted atop an abandoned silo, barely visible in the heat shimmer. See that drone? Ward asked. Virex's optics zoomed. Yes. Left antenna. Tom squinted once. Adjusted his stance casually. Raised a compact rifle that had been leaning unnoticed against the fence. No dramatic pose. No prone position. He rested the stock against his shoulder. exhaled. The crack of the shot carried across the field. A metallic snap echoed faintly in the distance. The drone's left antenna sheared clean off. It fell in a lazy spiral to the dirt. The Threxian honor guard flinched despite themselves. Range verified, 970 meters. No visible targeting drone. No artillery guidance. Manual. Virex turned slowly back to Ward. How many can replicate that? Ward didn't hesitate. Half of them. Maybe more. The Threxian guard captain's breathing grew sharper. You normalized military-grade precision. Ward shrugged. It's just practice. Virex's mind ran the calculations. Distributed population centers across Earth colonies. Billions of civilians. Even a small percentage possessing advanced marksmanship created an impossible occupation model. Siege lines would be porous. Commanders would be targets. Supply officers. Forward observers. No safe rear echelon. No predictable front line. You train children? Virex asked. Ward smiled faintly. We teach responsibility. That was not my question. Ward met his gaze evenly. Yes. The silence that followed was heavier than any artillery barrage. The Threxian doctrine assumed combatants were designated. Identifiable. Isolated. The human doctrine blurred that boundary. Not out of malice. Out of culture. Ward folded his arms loosely. You asked which one's our sniper. He gestured toward the elderly woman. She's been shooting longer than your youngest officer's been alive. He nodded toward the teenage girl. She competes recreationally. Virex's voice lowered. And urban populations? Ward's smirk returned briefly. They have rooftops. The wind shifted direction. For the first time since arriving, Virex felt exposed. Not physically. Strategically. He had brought 6 armored soldiers to intimidate a farming colony. And now he understood that intimidation did not function against a culture that treated range precision as normal behavior. You could have fired on us the moment we exited our carrier, Virex said quietly. Ward nodded. Yes. Why didn't you? Ward's expression shifted. The smirk faded completely. Because we're not at war. The words carried weight. The Threxian guard captain stiffened slightly. But you prepared as if you were. Ward glanced around at the fields. We always are. Virex absorbed that. Not paranoia. Preparation. The difference mattered. Your species does not separate civilian from defense, Virex said. Ward shook his head slightly. No. We separate aggression from defense. He stepped closer, not threateningly, but enough that the message landed clearly. You cross into our territory with siege fleets, Ward said evenly. You don't fight our army. He gestured broadly to the horizon. You fight our culture. The irrigation turbine slowed as its cycle completed. The mechanical hum faded into open field silence. Virex's optics dimmed slightly as he processed. The Threxian Empire specialized in visible dominance. But you could not visibly dominate a species that embedded resistance into everyday life. No centralized sniper. No elite overwatch. Just millions of steady hands. Virex turned to his honor guard. Lower lances. They obeyed instantly. The subtle shift echoed louder than the earlier rifle crack. Ward inclined his head slightly. Counselor, he said calmly. We're farmers. Virex studied him. And hunters. Ward's eyes sharpened. Only when necessary. The Threxian carrier's ramp hissed softly as internal systems recalibrated. Virex took one final look across the settlement. Barn windows. Windmill platforms. Fields stretching beyond visible range. He imagined every one of them with a human eye behind it. Watching. Waiting. Not hostile. Just capable. You will provide documentation of your territorial limits, Virex said. Ward nodded. Already transmitted. A pause. And if those limits are respected? Ward's answer was simple. You won't need to ask which one's our sniper again. The wind moved through the crops once more. The meeting concluded not with threats, but with recalculation. As the Threxian delegation returned to their carrier, Virex understood something fundamental. A fleet can be counted. A base can be mapped. An army can be measured. But a civilian culture trained in precision? That cannot be sieged. The ramp sealed. Engines ignited. The carrier lifted slowly into the sky. Ward watched it ascend, hands resting casually on the edge of the folding table. Behind him, the civilians relaxed visibly.